Hola! Today we're going to be talking about stem changing verbs. Please do not forget that you do need to know your AR, ER, and IR verb endings for this. Just because we're talking about stem changing verbs does not mean that these things go away, okay? Stem changing verbs, we briefly talked about stems in the last video. As a reminder, for what a stem is, if you see the verb bailar, and then we drop our AR ending, what we're left with right here is called a stem, okay? When we call these stem changing verbs, it's actually what is in the stem that's going to change. Bailar is not one of them. That was just a good example for you. Let's talk about the verbs that we are going to be using that are stem changing verbs. Okay, there are three different types of stem changing verbs we're going to learn about today. The first one is E to IE. These are the ones that technically you learned last year. So we have cerrar, to close, empezar, to begin, encender, to turn on, pensar, to think, preferir, to prefer, querer, to want or to love, and sentir, to feel. Now these are called E to IE stem changers because you're going to see an E that's going to appear in the stem. Remember, the stem is when you drop the ending. And that E is going to change to an IE in your stem before you add your ending. For your E to I stem changers, we have pedir and repetir. Pedir to ask for or to order, and repetir to repeat. These are called E to I stem changers because the E is going to be changing to an I. So we're not adding an I, we're changing the E to an I. And last but not least, dormir, to sleep, volver, to return, recordar, to remember, poder, to be able to, or we would translate it as to can, and jugar, to play. So here you have either an O that's going to stem change to a UE, or in the case of jugar, the U is going to change to a UE. Just to point out, not all of these verbs have the same ending, okay? So like cerrar is an AR verb, empezar an AR verb, but encender, it's an ER verb. So your endings are still going to apply here. What is going to stay the same with all of them is this stem changing E in these ones, or the stem changing O, or the U in these ones. Okay, let's see what that looks like now. So stem changing verbs are also called boot verbs, and we are going to find out on the next slide why. Okay, we're going to start with a verb that you have used before, pensar. This is one of those E to IE stem changers. Okay, so these are the ones that you've learned before. Remember, once again, this means that this E right here is going to change to an IE in our stem. But we first need to drop our AR ending because that's how we conjugate verbs. Always drop the ending first. So now if I make my stem for the yo form, we have piens. Remember that E changed to an IE. So this is actually the stem that I'm going to use for the yo, the tu, the el, ella, usted, and then the ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, my exception here is going to be the nosotros form and the vosotros form. We do not do the stem change. All we need to do for those is drop that AR. So pens instead of piens. Next step is we need to add our endings. Remember, these are AR verbs. So we have o, as, a, amos, ais, and an. So remember, these are called stem changing verbs because something in our stem changes. But we also call these boot verbs because you'll see this boot here. The forms that fit inside the boot have the stem change. The ones that don't fit inside the boot do not take the stem change. Okay, the next type of stem change we have is an E to I, like pedir. So remember, this E right here is going to change to an I. Unlike the E to IE, it changed to an IE. Here it just changes to an I. So first thing I want to do is make my stem. Remember, it's going to now be bid for the forms that are inside of my boot. And it's going to stay bed for the forms that are outside of my boot. Now I need to add my endings. It's an IR verb. Okay, remember we've dropped this IR. And then I add my endings. Pido, pides, pide, pedimos, IR verb, pedis, and piden. So remember, forms that are inside the boot, stem change. Forms that are outside of the boot, no stem change. Okay, and another stem change would be O to UE. Once again, drop your IR ending here. This O is going to change to a UE in your stem. So my stem is going to be duerm. For these forms. Remember, inside the boot. Outside of the boot, that O is going to stay there, dorm. Okay, I need to add my endings for IR verbs. Duermo, duermes, duerme, dormimos, dormis, and duermen. Once again, inside the boot, stem change. Outside of the boot, no stem change. Okay, your last example, similar to dormir, it's going to change to a UE, but instead of an O, it's a U changing to a UE. There aren't a ton of these verbs. So once again, this U is going to change to a UE. It's an AR verb. Cross off my ending. My stem is jueg for the forms in the boot. And outside the boot, it is jug. Okay, if I add my endings, it's an AR verb. Juego, juegas, juega. Jugamos, jugáis, and juegan. Once again, inside my boot, I have my stem change. Outside of my boot, no stem change. Careful with this one. If you forget to stem change the yo form, you're going to end up with jugo. Jugo actually means juice. So watch out for that one. Okay, gracias y adiós.